After my husband broke up with his mistress, she became consumed with rage. In a horrifying act of revenge, she splashed sulfuric acid on me and my daughter, her words echoing in my ears like a curse. If your husband loves you and your daughter so much, then he should experience the agony of losing the ones he cherishes the most. Her vengeance was meant for him, but we bore the brunt of her fury. She was sentenced to death, but the true mastermind behind my suffering, Tom, my husband, moved on effortlessly. He remarried, built a new family, and lived in luxury, leaving my daughter and me to rot in despair. We were both disfigured, cast aside like broken dolls. The stares, the whispers, the pitying glances, they never ceased. With my face scarred beyond recognition, I lost my job. I scavenged for scraps to survive, my daughter and I clinging to each other in our misery. Meanwhile, Tom, the man who once called us his family, turned his back on us without remorse. He divorced me in an instant, choosing a comfortable life with his new wife and sons over the daughter he had abandoned. For years, I begged him to contribute to our daughter's treatment, just enough to give her a sliver of hope, to erase at least a fraction of her pain. But he dismissed me as if I were nothing more than a beggar. I have a mortgage, car payments, and my son's tuition to take care of, he would say, feigning helplessness while his new wife flaunted designer bags and his sons attended prestigious schools. Yet, when it came to our daughter, all he could spare was a measly $200. Take that girl to have a meal, he said, as if that could ever make up for the years of suffering she endured. But by then, my daughter no longer needed plastic surgery. She no longer needed anything. The ridicule, the humiliation, the suffocating weight of society's judgment, it had been too much. She had climbed to the rooftop of her school and let go, embracing the only escape she could find. She was gone. I stood before Tom, the very man responsible for my daughter's death, and smiled. No need to bother yourself, I whispered. Take her to dinner yourself. Before he could react, I pulled out a knife and plunged it into his heart. His eyes widened, his mouth opened in shock, but no words came. The man who destroyed my life, my daughter's life, had finally met his end. And just as he took everything from me, I took the last thing I had left, my own life. Then I woke up. I gasped for breath, my hands trembling as I touched my face. Smooth, unscarred. My heart pounded against my ribs as my eyes darted around the room. The paper cranes my daughter had folded still hung by the window, swaying gently in the breeze. The scent of freshly cooked food lingered in the air. I turned to the clock on the wall. 4:50 p.m. September 11th, 2014. My blood ran cold. In 10 minutes, my daughter would leave school. In 10 minutes, Jade would lure her away under the guise of being a relative. In 10 minutes, my daughter's fate would be sealed. But not this time. Panic surged through me as I realized that it would take longer than 10 minutes to reach her school. Even if I ran, even if I pushed my body to its limit, I might not make it in time. Desperation clawed at my throat. I couldn't let history repeat itself. I wouldn't lose her again. My hands shook as I reached for my phone. There was only one option left, the police. In my previous life, it had been passers-by who stopped a police car and got my daughter to the hospital. The officers had saved her life that day. And now, they were the only ones I could trust. Without a second thought, I dialed 911, my voice trembling as I pleaded. Please, you have to help me. My daughter is in danger. Immediately afterward, the call connected. As I sprinted toward the school, I quickly relayed the truth. Hello, I am Juliya, Lily's mother. My daughter is in Class 3A at Bry Elementary School. My husband's mistress, Jade, is standing at the school gate with a bottle of sulfuric acid. She's planning to pour it on my daughter. My daughter's school dismisses at 5 o'clock. Time is running out. Please, you have to save her. The police didn't question me about how I knew this. They didn't demand proof or waste time. Instead, their response was swift and firm. Understood. We're on our way. The call ended. A weight lifted off my chest, but I knew this was only the first step. I couldn't afford to relax. Though the police station was only 5 minutes away from the school, Anything could happen in those crucial moments. Until they arrived, my daughter was still in grave danger. I needed someone at the school to protect her. Who could I trust? My first thought was my daughter's homeroom teacher, Miss Rose. But that idea vanished as quickly as it came. In my previous life, Miss Rose had played a part in my daughter's tragedy. The school had strict rules against strangers picking up children to prevent human trafficking. No one besides parents or grandparents was allowed to take a student home. Under normal circumstances, Jade should never have been able to take my daughter. But Miss Rose had knowingly betrayed my trust. She and Jade had been friends since their school days. Even though they worked at different schools now, they still kept in close contact. Miss Rose was fully aware of Jade's affair with Tom. So when Jade came to pick up my daughter, she didn't hesitate. She had the audacity to tell my child that Jade was there to help her get used to her future stepmother. My blood boiled just remembering it. After the acid attack, Miss Rose had cried crocodile tears, begging for my forgiveness. She swore she never imagined Jade would do something so horrific. But I never believed her. She had known Jade for years. She knew exactly what kind of person Jade was. And yet, she had let my innocent daughter walk straight into her clutches. Miss Rose hadn't even been punished for what she did. She got to keep her job. She only apologized to me because she wanted me to help restore her reputation. As if an apology could erase the scars my daughter had to live with every day. As if saying I'm sorry could bring back my child's stolen innocence. Well, I would never forgive her. I needed someone else, someone I could trust completely. Then I thought of him. Mr. Green. My daughter had mentioned before that he was her favorite teacher. When she once had a fever in class, it was Mr. Green who took her to the infirmary and called me immediately. He was a responsible teacher, someone who genuinely cared about his students. Most importantly, he didn't know Jade. He had no reason to side with her. I didn't hesitate. I searched for his number while running and dialed. Hello. Who is this? His voice was confused. Mr. Green, are you at school right now? I asked breathless. I'm grading papers in the office. Why? He was in the same office as Miss Rose. That was dangerous. Can you step outside for a moment? I asked cautiously. I need to tell you something important. It's about Lily's safety. Please don't mention this to Miss Rose. Though he sounded puzzled, he listened. I heard his footsteps as he walked away from the office. Okay, I'm outside by the flower bed now. What's going on? I took a deep breath and forced my voice to stay steady. Mr. Green, my husband's mistress, is at the school with a bottle of sulfuric acid. She's planning to attack my daughter. I've already called the police. They're on their way. But I need you to find Lily and keep her safe until the police arrive. And one more thing. Miss Rose is Jade's friend. I have reason to believe she might be involved. Please be careful. There was a moment of silence. Then, without hesitation, he answered. I understand. I'll get Lily right now. Once the police take care of this, call me. Hearing his determined footsteps rushing away, I felt a flicker of relief. My daughter was finally safe. I ran to the main road and waved down a taxi. My legs felt weak, my chest heaved, and my heart pounded furiously against my ribs. I had never been so afraid in my life. I needed to get to Lily. I needed to see her with my own eyes and know she was okay. As I sat in the back seat, anxiously watching the city blur past, my eyes suddenly landed on a familiar figure outside the window. My breath caught in my throat. He was sitting on a park bench with a young girl nestled against him, her head resting on his shoulder. Tom's hand gently stroked her hair. His eyes filled with affection. They looked like a perfect couple. My stomach twisted. Wasn't he supposed to be at work? Wasn't he too busy to pick up his daughter from school? The overtime he had talked about. It was all a lie. And then the girl lifted her head, and I saw her face clearly. Ivy. My mind reeled. Tom had always claimed he met Ivy after our divorce. That their love story began only after our marriage had ended. But here they were. Together. while I was still his wife. I had been such a fool. Suddenly it all made sense. Tom had already grown tired of Jade. She was just a married woman to him now. No longer exciting, no longer new. And now he had found someone younger, someone prettier, someone fresh. Ivy was just an intern at his company. But Tom had already begun his next affair. Jade had never stood a chance. And my daughter had paid the price for it. Rage and sorrow clawed at my chest. I clenched my fists so tightly that my nails dug into my palms. But I had no time for anger. My daughter's life was at stake. I would deal with Tom later. Right now I had something more important to do. I turned my gaze away from him and urged the driver. Please drive faster. I need to get to Bry Elementary School. My daughter's waiting for me. Tom had thought about breaking up with Jade, but he knew her too well. She was unstable, capable of anything if provoked. He feared that if he told her the truth, that he had fallen in love with someone else, she would lash out. So instead he fed her a lie. He told her that he wanted to return to his family, that he didn't want to set a bad example of infidelity for his daughter. He played the part of the remorseful father, painting our daughter and me as the reason for their separation. And Jade, blinded by her obsession, believed him. Outside the car the sun was shining, but I felt nothing but cold. My heart was frozen with the realization of what Tom had done. He had turned Jade's hatred away from Ivy and redirected it toward my daughter and me. To protect the woman he truly loved. He offered us as the sacrifice. Jade, believing that my daughter and I were the reason she had lost Tom, sought revenge in the most horrific way possible. She came with sulfuric acid, intending to destroy us. In the end she succeeded. My daughter and I were disfigured. Jade was sentenced to death, but that did not change our suffering. And Tom, he got everything he wanted. He married Ivy, lived happily, and walked away unscathed. The realization made my blood boil. Tom was 100 times more disgusting than I had ever imagined. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone and took a picture of him and Ivy, their bodies entwined in a lover's embrace. This photo, it would be useful someday. When I arrived at the school, a crowd had already gathered. People were murmuring, their voices filled with shock and anger. I heard a woman tried to throw acid on elementary school students. Apparently, she's a teacher. Can you believe it? How could someone like that teach children? I shoved my way through the crowd, flashing my ID at the security guard. My heart pounded violently in my chest as I entered the school grounds. Jade had already been subdued. Her wrists were bound with handcuffs, and 2 officers held her firmly in place. Her face was twisted in despair. But what made my blood run cold was the voice I heard next. Jade, how could you do this? How could you be so cruel? It was Miss Rose, my daughter's homeroom teacher. My heart stopped. Did this mean my daughter had been attacked? The world around me blurred. A suffocating panic gripped me, my breath shallow and ragged. My legs threatened to give out beneath me. Lily! I screamed desperately, my voice raw with fear. Then I heard the sweetest voice in the world. Mom! I whirled around. My daughter stood there, her face unmarked, untouched by the nightmare I had envisioned. There were no scars, no pain, just her innocent, bright smile. She let go of Mr. Green's hand and ran into my arms. A sob tore from my throat as I clutched her to me, my body shaking uncontrollably. Tears streamed down my face, hot and unrelenting. I held her so tightly, as if she might vanish if I let go. After checking her over again and again, I finally let myself believe it. She was safe. My daughter giggled, her small hands patting my shoulder. Mom, I'm okay. Mr. Green took me to the upstairs bathroom to play hide and seek before school dismissal. Aunt Jade and Miss Rose couldn't find me. Mr. Green stepped forward, his expression serious as he explained. After your call, I knew I had to act fast. I took Lily and hid her in a bathroom on another floor. I didn't want to scare her, so I told her we were playing a game. He paused, his jaw tightening. Sure enough, not long after Jade arrived. And Miss Rose, without hesitation, let her into Lily's classroom. But when they got there, Lily was gone. They were still looking for her when the police arrived and arrested Jade. I turned toward Miss Rose, my blood boiling. My daughter had escaped by sheer luck, by the kindness of Mr. Green, and by my quick thinking. And yet, here Miss Rose stood, playing the part of the righteous bystander. Luckily, Lily wasn't hurt. Otherwise, you would have gone to jail, she snapped at Jade, her voice full of self-righteous indignation. You should apologize to Lily's mother. Scoff. Did she really think an apology would fix this? Did she believe that Jade could simply say sorry and walk free? That she could escape justice because Lily was unharmed? But the most ridiculous part was that Jade believed her. Her deadened eyes suddenly came to life with desperation. She latched onto Miss Rose's words as though they were a lifeline. She dropped to her knees in front of me. Juliya, I was wrong. Please forgive me. I was just confused. She turned to my daughter, her voice trembling. Lily, I have a daughter your age too. You're a kind-hearted person, please. I stared down at her, my chest burning with a fury so intense it threatened to consume me. Forgive her. After what she had done. Well, I would never forgive. Not her. Not Tom. Not anyone who had a hand in this. They would all pay. Jade was cunning, knowing exactly how to manipulate emotions. She clung to the idea of her daughter, using her as a shield, hoping to exploit my kindness. You certainly don't want my daughter to lose her mother, right? She pleaded, her voice trembling with desperation. I stared at her, my expression cold, unyielding. You have a daughter, I said, my voice sharp as a blade. Yet you were willing to throw acid on someone else's child. When you held that bottle in your hand, did you even once think about your own daughter? Daughters are not an amulet that can protect you from your sins, Jade. Her pleas fell on deaf ears. I glared at her, ignoring the pitiful way she crumpled to the floor, her sobs racking her body. The police wasted no time taking her away, handcuffing her wrists and dragging her towards the detention center. As they left, one officer motioned for me to stay back. We need to take your statement, Ms. Juliya. I nodded and turned to Mr. Green, who had been watching the scene unfold in silence. Please take care of Lily for me, I murmured, brushing my fingers through my daughter's soft hair before following the officers inside. As I sat across from them in the interrogation room, the inevitable question came. How did you know Jade was going to attack your daughter today? And why were you so certain? I knew I couldn't tell them the truth. That I had already lived through this nightmare once. That in my previous life I had discovered everything too late, when my daughter and I were already scarred, and Jade had already been sentenced to death. No, they wouldn't believe me. But I had anticipated this moment and had already prepared my answer. This morning while cleaning up, I found messages on my husband's computer, I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling inside me. Jade had sent him a threat. If he dared to leave her, she would destroy the most important person to him. She even attached a picture of a bottle of sulfuric acid. That's when I knew. The officers exchanged glances, their expressions turning grim. We'll need to summon your husband for questioning. Tom arrived not long after, his expression a mixture of irritation and feigned confusion. His shirt collar was still stained with lipstick, a mark of his betrayal. As he sat down across from the officers, they wasted no time. Mr. Tom, at around 5 p.m. today, when your daughter was nearly attacked, where were you? To my surprise, Tom's eyes darkened with what seemed like regret. His voice trembled as he answered, I was working overtime at the company. How is Lily? Is she all right? His performance was flawless. If I hadn't known the truth, even I might have believed him. But I did know the truth, and the sheer audacity of his act filled me with fury. The officer responded calmly. Your daughter is safe, just frightened. Tom visibly relaxed, and I saw it, the moment his relief overshadowed his act of concern. My lips curled into a mocking smile. Lily was in danger because of you, I said icily. Stop pretending. Tom's eyes widened in disbelief. What the hell are you talking about? You're the one who was supposed to watch over her. How could you let that woman get close to her? You're a housewife who can't even protect her own child. I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat. Interesting, I said, my voice laced with sarcasm. No one mentioned that the attacker was a woman. Yet you knew. Tell me, Tom, how did you know? His face paled. I was just guessing, he stammered. I'm busy working every day, my mind is all over the place. I must have misspoken. Misspoken, I repeated, pulling out my phone. I held up a picture I had taken just an hour earlier. Tom and Ivy, locked in a passionate embrace at the park. This was taken at 4:55 p.m. today. You claim you were at work, but you were actually on a date with your intern. The officers turned to Tom, their expressions hardening. Panic flickered in his eyes, but he was quick to cover it. That's market research. Ivy and I were out for research purposes. I swiped to the next photo, where the two of them were kissing deeply, utterly engrossed in each other. Oh, and is this also part of your research? Studying each other's saliva, perhaps? Tom's mask cracked. His expression twisted with rage, and his hand shot up as if to strike me. But before he could, the officer beside him caught his wrist, his voice sharp. Sir, this is the police station. Your behavior is highly inappropriate. Tom froze, his face turning red with humiliation. The lead officer spoke again, this time with quiet authority. Mr. Tom, we have a few more questions. Why did you refuse to pick up your daughter from school today, despite knowing she was in danger? And why did you take an unplanned leave to spend the afternoon with someone else? Tom's lips parted, but no words came out. His silence was damning. The officers wasted no time pulling up his call records. Dozens of messages exchanged between him and Jade over the past 6 months. The last call. Just this afternoon. Finally, under the suffocating weight of evidence, Tom's resistance crumbled. He let out a shaky breath, his voice barely a whisper. I admit it. I knew Jade wanted to attack someone with acid, but I didn't think it would be Lily. I thought she was going after Ivy. His voice cracked. That's why I took Ivy away, to protect her. I closed my eyes, my chest burning with unspeakable fury. Tom had chosen to save his mistress over his own daughter. The officer's gaze turned ice cold. So, in order to protect your affair, you were willing to let your daughter suffer? Tom had no answer. He simply lowered his head in defeat. And in that moment I knew, I had won. Not just against Jade, but against the man who had once held my trust, my love. He had betrayed me, tried to destroy me. But in the end, he had destroyed himself instead. This time justice would be served. And I, Juliya, would ensure it. The moment I heard Tom's excuse, I let out a cold, bitter laugh. Then why didn't you call the police immediately? My voice cut through the air like a blade. Tom forced a weak smile, his expression laced with false regret. Call the police. That would ruin both Ivy's and my reputation. I just wanted to stop Jade, talk to her, maybe offer her some money so she wouldn't disturb my life anymore. Aimless. That was the only word that could describe this man. He spoke with such ease, as if betraying and manipulating women was second nature to him. His reasoning might have seemed logical to an outsider, but I saw right through the cracks in his words. My voice was unwavering when I questioned. You say you thought Jade wanted to harm Ivy. But as far as I know, your relationship with Ivy has been kept secret. No one in Iran knows about you two. Yet, you told Jade that you broke up with her to return to your family and take care of your daughter. Jade believed that the person you loved most was Lily and me. So tell me, Tom, why did you spend the entire afternoon with Ivy instead of calling to warn me? Tom's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. His face twisted in confusion, his mind desperately scrambling for an excuse. He stammered. No, it's not. I didn't think. I took a step closer, my eyes boring into his, my lips curving into a humorless smile. No, Tom. You just wanted to kill me and my daughter. His entire body tensed. What nonsense are you talking about? How could I want to kill my own daughter? No matter how angry you are, don't make up such unfounded accusations. His voice carried the right amount of indignation, but I wasn't fooled. His hands, trembling beneath the table, told me everything I needed to know. He was terrified, and that fear only strengthened my conviction. I leaned in, my voice dripping with venom. Unfounded. You control a huge amount of property that should have belonged to both of us. But instead of providing for Lily and me, you decided we were better off dead. Isn't that right, Tom? In my past life, Tom had always pretended to be poor, even using Lily's custody as a bargaining chip during the divorce. He made me leave with nothing. And yet, as soon as he got the divorce certificate, he bought a luxurious 200-square-meter home and moved in with Ivy. He never hesitated to splurge on her while making me and Lily live in a cramped, run-down apartment. This time I would not let him get away with it. Tom panicked, his lips moving, but no words came out. His lies were crumbling and he knew it. The police wasted no time. They took us to the bank and checked his transaction history. And just as I expected, his deception unraveled before my eyes. Half a month ago, Tom had won $20 million in the lottery. After taxes, he pocketed $16 million. Instead of securing our daughter's future, he secretly used Ivy's name to buy an $8 million house. The rest transferred to Ivy in hundreds of small transactions to avoid detection. Tom was a man willing to murder his wife and daughter over money. And the evidence kept stacking up. The police also retrieved his chat records with Ivy. One particular exchange stood out. A week ago, Ivy had texted, "Tom, when can we get married? I can't keep hiding like this." Tom's response chilled me to the bone. "Soon, baby. At most 1 more week. Just be patient. A week." That was all the time he needed to get rid of me and Lily. When the conspiracy was exposed, Tom completely lost it. "I never meant to hurt anyone. I just wanted to divorce Juliya as soon as possible. That's all. This is just a coincidence." But no one believed him. The police uncovered even more messages, this time between Tom and Jade. Unlike Ivy, Jade wasn't his plaything. She had been expecting him to commit. And he had lied to her too. Half a month ago, when Tom and Jade had planned to divorce their respective spouses and be together, she had taken the leap. She sent him a photo of her divorce certificate, excitedly asking, "Tom, I got the divorce certificate. When will you divorce and marry me?" Tom's response: "I also want to marry you, but I have to think about my daughter. I can't let her grow up in a broken family. Sorry." He fed her the same lies he had fed me, pretending to be a devoted father while posting staged pictures of him taking Lily shopping, as if he was the perfect family man. Jade, deceived and furious, had sent him one final message. "I gave up everything for you, and now you're telling me you won't marry me? Are you playing with me? My daughter lost her mother because of you, and yours still gets to have one." He had not replied. Instead, he had simply continued posting cryptic messages about fate and love lost, deleting them after a few minutes. He was a master manipulator, twisting women's emotions to serve his agenda. And in the end it cost him everything. Tom was charged with inciting murder and intentional homicide. He was immediately detained. His punishment would be severe. As I stepped out of the police station, I wasted no time. I headed straight to the lawyer's office. Sending Tom and Jade to prison wasn't enough. My next target was Ivy. She had received more money from Tom than I ever had. That was about to change. I gathered all the necessary evidence and filed a lawsuit demanding that Ivy return every last penny Tom had transferred to her. When she received the court summons, chaos erupted. Tom's mother was the first to call me, her voice shrill with rage. "Juliya, how long are you going to cause trouble? First, you put my son in jail, and now you're taking Ivy to court. How vicious can you be? Ivy is pregnant. She's carrying the only heir of our family. What if the baby is affected by stress? Ivy was pregnant. No wonder she had been so desperate to tie Tom down. But I felt nothing, no anger, no sadness. Only cold resolve. Vicious. I repeated, my voice void of emotion. When your son plotted to kill my daughter and me over money, was he not vicious? And tell me, how can you be so sure that the child Ivy is carrying even belongs to Tom? Silence. The game wasn't over yet. I was going to take back everything that had been stolen from me. And this time, I would not be the one left empty-handed. Tom's family had better be careful, lest they end up empty-handed. In my previous life, I had noticed that Ivy's son bore no resemblance to Tom. Not even a little. It always struck me as odd, like Tom was just a convenient surrogate father rather than the real one. And now, as I faced them, I was certain. This child wasn't his. The moment I voiced my suspicion, Ivy lost all pretense of innocence. The delicate, sweet woman who had played the victim so well finally cracked. Her voice rose in a shrill, desperate screech. You old hag. What nonsense are you spouting? You're just jealous. You want to break me and Tom apart, don't you? No wonder he would rather rot in jail than stay married to a vicious woman like you. Her words didn't anger me. No, her reaction only confirmed my suspicion. I saw the flicker of panic in her eyes before she turned to Tom's parents, desperately trying to regain control. Uncle, Aunt. Don't believe her. She's trying to drive a wedge between us. If you fall for her tricks, the money, more than 10 million, will end up in her hands. We have to stand together. Tom's parents, just as foolish as he was, immediately took Ivy's side. His mother shot me a glare full of hatred. Juliya, stop this nonsense. The money belongs to our grandson. Don't even think about taking a single penny. Their blind devotion to a grandchild who wasn't even theirs was almost laughable. But I wasn't here to argue. I simply smiled and said, all right, let's wait and see. They were fools, all of them. Just like Tom, they were willing to destroy their real bloodline, their own granddaughter, for the sake of a child who had nothing to do with them. The court hearing arrived soon after. Ivy played her role well, sitting in the courtroom with a pitiful look on her face, hands resting protectively over her stomach as if she were the victim. I am pregnant, she declared dramatically. This money is child support that Tom gave me. Even if the child is illegitimate, he still has the obligation to support it. Besides, the money came from a lottery ticket that Tom bought himself. It has nothing to do with Juliya. Smirk. How desperate she sounded. My lawyer, calm and composed, spoke up. First, legally speaking, only a person who has been born has rights. An unborn child does not have the legal right to claim support. Second, during the marriage, any income, including wages, bonuses, and yes, lottery winnings, are considered joint property. Third, Tom unilaterally transferred this joint property to the defendant, Ivy, without his wife's consent. This act is a violation of property rights and is therefore legally invalid. The defendant must return all assets transferred to her. Ivy clenched her fists. So what if it's joint property? Tom still owns half of it. I'll return half to her, that's fair. My lawyer gave a cold smile. Wrong. Joint property belongs equally to both spouses. Until divorce is finalized, there is no half and half. Therefore, my client has every right to reclaim all of the money. The judge ruled in my favor. Ivy was ordered to return every last cent. As we stepped out of the courtroom, Ivy glared at me, her lips curling into a sneer. So what if you won the lawsuit? In Tom's heart, I'm the only one he loves. Once he's out of prison, he'll make you pay. Chuckled. Oh, you poor thing. Are you talking about that useless man? You should be more worried about yourself. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. After all, Jade is only serving a few years for attempted murder. Once she's out, do you think she'll let you go so easily? You're the reason Tom betrayed her. What do you think she'll do to you? For the first time, I saw true fear in Ivy's eyes. And then, just as I expected, Ivy disappeared. The night before Tom and Jade were sentenced, she quietly went to get an abortion, packed her bags and ran. She didn't even bother recovering from the procedure. She left behind a letter for Tom's parents, confessing the truth. The child she had been carrying was never Tom's. The next day, Tom's parents arrived in court with hollow eyes, their faces lined with betrayal. And Tom? He looked around the courtroom for Ivy, his beloved Ivy, but she was nowhere to be found. A flicker of regret passed over his face, but it was too late. Jade's ex-husband and daughter were also present. Her little girl, around the same age as my Lily, clung to her father and sobbed for her mother. When Jade saw her child, she finally broke down in tears. The verdict was announced. Tom was sentenced to 3 years, Jade to 2. Their lives and careers were destroyed. And as the sentence was read, Jade turned to Tom with eyes filled with pure, burning hatred. I knew without a doubt that when she got out, she would make Tom suffer. Meanwhile, justice was served elsewhere too. Lily's former class teacher, Ms. Rose, lost her teaching license. Her carelessness had cost her everything. In contrast, Mr. Green, the teacher who had fought for my daughter, was honored as an outstanding teacher. He deserved it. With Tom behind bars, I wasted no time. Filed for divorce. I had only one condition. I wanted Lily to own the house. The only thing Tom could keep was $3 million in cash. Nothing else. It was only then that Tom learned the truth about Ivy's betrayal. He looked at me with desperation in his eyes. Juliya, I love you. Please don't do this. I don't want a divorce. We can fix this. You don't want Lily to grow up in a broken home, do you? I rolled my eyes. Even if she doesn't have a father, it's better than having a criminal for one. I leaned in, smirking. With the $3 million, I can buy insurance for Lily. You won't see a single cent. Tom went crazy in prison trying to hold on, but in the end he had no choice. He signed the divorce papers. I won. Finally, my daughter and I were free. No more nightmares. No more acid attacks. No more betrayals. Just peace, safety, and a future we both deserved. If you like this story, hit the like button and subscribe for more stories like these only at StoryTimes.